Thank you for tuning in to Terry Swoop Videos. On today's video, I'm going to talk about what happened to the actress LaWanda Page from Sanford and Son. She's known for playing Aunt Esther on Sanford and Son. And she was one of the most popular characters on the show. Her and Fred Sanford would go back and forth, and it was hilarious. And Sanford and Son was one of the most popular shows in the country during the 1970s. All in the Family and Sanford and Son were the two most popular shows in the country. All in the Family averaged 30 million views per show, and Sanford and Son averaged 28 million views per show. And these two shows were hugely popular. They came on right after each other on the same channel. I thought the chemistry between LaWanda Page and Redd Foxx was amazing. And even though they would fight and bicker on the show, they were really good friends in real life. They grew up together in St. Louis. And even though they were never in a relationship, they loved each other like brother and sister. So they always had a lot of love for each other. And their friendship lasted for over 60 years. This is how much they loved each other. LaWanda Page was born on October 19th, 1920 in Cleveland, Ohio. Her family moved to St. Louis around 1925. So she was raised during the era of Jim Crow, during the early 1900s. She grew up in poverty. She grew up in the worst type of oppression. And she got married when she was only 14 years old. And the marriage was annulled after a few months. And she went to high school with Redd Foxx, and this is where they met each other. And they became close friends right away. And he suggested that she started doing comedy. But she didn't start off as a comedian. She started off as a nightclub dancer. And her nightclub dance was so popular that they called her the Goddess Bronze of Fire. And when she was younger, she was a beautiful woman, gorgeous woman. She looked completely different when she was younger. A lot of people may be shocked when they look at these pictures and they're like, oh, there's no way that's her. Yes, this is what she looked like when she was younger. During the 1950s, LaWanda becomes a stand-up comedian. And she starts doing comedy shows with Redd Foxx, Richard Pryor, and they toured together all over the country. And it would have been great to see three of the greatest comedians in black entertainment history performing together. That would have been a great sight to see. I wish I could build a time machine and go back in history to see these shows. Eventually, she joins a comedy group called Skillet and Leroy, and she starts touring with them throughout the 1960s. They also recorded their own comedy albums, and these albums sold millions of copies. It made a lot of money back then. So she decided to go solo and start recording her own comedy albums. And she had a lot of success doing that during the 1970s. Comedy albums were a big thing back then. Richard Pryor made a lot of money off comedy albums, and so did Redd Foxx. She probably made more money off comedy albums than she ever made as an actress. And then she eventually gets the part on Sanford and Son. And Sanford and Son was on the air from 1972 to 1977. It was on the air for 6 years. And this is one of the most successful black shows in history, even though the actors on the show didn't get paid that much money. Redd Foxx only made $20,000 per episode, while Kara O'Connor of All in the Family was making $150,000 per episode. And Redd Foxx wanted to negotiate his contract. He wanted his salary to be the same as Kara O'Connor. But they weren't having it. They weren't willing to pay him the same amount of money that Kara O'Connor was making for All in the Family. So in 1977, Redd Foxx quits the show and Sanford and Son goes off the air. And he ends up starting his own show called The Redd Foxx Show. And Sarah O'Connor actually appears on the show. They were always good friends, even though they had disputes. They were always good friends. But LaWanda Page didn't get very many acting roles after Sanford and Son went off the air. In 1980, she played in a few episodes of The Love Boat. And in 1981, she played in the rebooted version of Sanford, but that didn't last. That show was canceled after the first season. After that, she didn't act for over 15 years. And she played in her last acting role in Friday in 1996, where she plays a Jehovah's Witness. Towards the end of her life, she had a lot of health problems. She developed diabetes, she started having heart problems, and then in 2002, she died from complications from diabetes. She was 81 years old. I just wanted to do this video to pay tribute to her. She's a legend. I think she's one of the pioneers in the history of black comedy. A lot of people have different opinions about this topic. Leave a comment, rate and subscribe. Turn on those notifications for future videos.